This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Game Changers Experience with myself, Adam Strong. And today we have another great, fun-packed show. I've got my good friend here, Tim Hughes. Now, who is Tim? Well, Tim is one of the world's leading pioneers and innovators of social selling. We'll talk about social selling and what that definition really means. But, you know, social selling is currently ranked number one by Analytica as the world's most influential social selling persons in the world. And LinkedIn has said that he is one of the world's, he's also the 8 sales experts globally to follow in LinkedIn, which is a really big accreditation. So kudos to Tim. Tim is also the co-author of 2 books, 2 best-selling books. And the 3rd book, Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, which is his 2nd edition, which we're going to be talking a little bit about as well. Some of the things that we're going to be covering today, ladies and gents, is we're going to be covering a little bit about what is social selling. Because it's interesting because I was having conversations with Tim offline, and I suppose I'm going to share what my perception of what it was before our conversation, and maybe that might be what you're thinking, and maybe there's maybe there is a relationship or not, but we're going to talk about what social selling really is. What are the techniques and tactics that Tim advises his clients when it comes to increasing sales and marketing? How do they influence and behave intertwine in terms of social selling? But I'd also like Tim to share maybe a recommended checklist for you guys in terms of being able to not only increase your social selling skills, but also in terms of being able to increase sales and marketing conversions within your business as well, especially in the digital marketing world, especially over the last couple of years. I feel like that's really accelerated during sort of after COVID and things like that. And that's going to continue to grow on year. So without further ado, Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. What a wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been great. It's great. It's interesting. So I've noticed, this is just a general observation. I've noticed more and more bald men are coming onto my show. I just wanted to share that. It was just a general observation.
Politically challenged, I think, is it?
Absolutely. Anyway, looking forward to today's conversations. And it's interesting, social selling, and I'll quickly share with the listeners when we were talking offline about my ideology of what social selling was basically building rapport and having conversations with someone on LinkedIn and potentially building human connections so that I could potentially sell them. That was kind of like my premise. But is there any element of truth in what my presumption or in that or not? I mean, talk to me about the bigger picture.
I'd agree with you. I think that anybody who's in B2B to sell what they've got to sell has got to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for is conversations. Whether there's lots of different ways of doing that. You can ring people up, you can send people emails, or what you can do is that you can have conversations on social media. So I'm not talking about connecting to people and pitching, because that's spam. I'm not suggesting that you connect to people and then wait and then pitch to them again. That's spam. We have a definition of social selling, which is using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationships and trust, which lead to conversations and commercial interactions.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
And what that is about it's about what you said, which is, how do I grow relationships on social media fast? Because I've got a number to make and it's a quarterly or a monthly number. How can I do that at scale And I think traditionally people think that I've heard a lot of people say that social selling takes a long time. It doesn't. That's utter rubbish. If you think about it, if I look credible on social media, and that's important, we will come back to that, I'm sure. If I look credible, if I look like an expert in my field, you're more likely to have a conversation with me. So if I connect to you, and I connect to you in a way that's not spammy, and the best way to connect to people isn't by telling people how great I am, because the connection is about the person that you're connecting to. It's about them, about what you can learn from them. But you need to be empathetic.
Yes.
And so you can connect. LinkedIn allows you to have 200 connections a week. So that's a possibility, to have 200 conversations a week. That would radically change anybody's pipeline. I was writing an article this morning. I wrote an article back in 2016 called "How to Get 10 C-Level Meetings a Week by Using Twitter." And it's published on my LinkedIn profile. It's for free. It's not gated. It's still there. I checked.
Nice.
And the thing is that even if you got one C-level meeting through Twitter, and all of your salespeople got that would radically change your pipeline. And that's what we're looking for. What we're looking for is transformation in the way that we're doing things, and using digital to transform what we're doing.
So, okay. So interesting thought process that just came up, actually. So I want to quickly share my quick thought. In terms of social selling as well, I mean, there are a few things that you mentioned, but I want to just to kind of, how do you distinguish between what social selling, aka, versus social media, in terms of using social media, whether it be direct messaging or whatever it is? Is it just social media is seen as a channel and social selling is kind of like the result? How would you differentiate the two, if you like?
Okay, so some things that we know that our buyers are on social media.
Yep.
There is now 60% of the world's population are active on social media, and they're active on social media every day. And active means the data. This is, and I'm quoting data. It's not my opinion. The data shows. So just so people know, Simon Kemp, KEMP. If you go to LinkedIn, look up Simon Kemp. He provides this data, and it's on his LinkedIn profile, and it's free. It's not gated. The average person spends 2 hours and 27 minutes every day on social media.
Wow.
We know that if we want to buy something, I just had new battery fitted to my car. What did I do? I just went onto Google and put battery fitters in London, and within 15 seconds, I've got someone booked to come to my house to fit a battery. It's a natural thing. Everyone's going. Everyone, all your listeners are going like, yeah, Tim, I know that. But what I'm explaining, that is a natural behavior that we have. And now a battery is fairly transactional. If you're spending $1 million on a new ERP system or a new payroll system, you might do a little bit more due diligence.
Yes.
The problem is, if you go to Google and put in what's the best CRM in the world, you actually don't get an answer. No. Because what happens is that every single supplier in the world buys that search. So what you get is you get hundreds of thousands of suppliers saying, buy my product, it's the best in the world, which is actually confusing. So what we're finding, and certainly we had a discussion with Simon Kemp recently, is that people are coming to social to search. That it's actually discovery. They may not even know the question to ask. If someone has actually said to an intern, go out to social media, go out and find, we need a new ERP system, go out and find one. What do you do?
Yeah.
And you may actually use Google, but what you're doing is you're going to social because you're going to get a far more accurate search, because what we're going to do is we're going to find someone's experience. I used this ERP system and it was really good. So what we're finding, and certainly what we're finding within our clients, that as long as you do a number of things, what happens is that those people out there that are searching actually will walk towards you, which is transformational. Because most people think of salespeople is I don't trust you. I don't believe a word you say. And all you're going to say is exactly the same as the competition, which is that you're the best. I mean, no one sells saying, well, we're actually fifth best and we're actually a bit expensive and our customer service is rubbish. If anybody does market like that, let me know. We all go to the market and say we're number one and we're the best. And so what happens is that none of us believe it. The same as if we go to Google and say, what's the best CRM? Everyone's going to, Microsoft, Salesforce, everybody's going to saying that theirs is the best one. What we're finding is that people are searching on social, and actually, as long as you're positioning yourself as an expert, positioning yourself where as a trustworthy person, what we're finding is that people are walking towards those people and saying, I've got a problem, I think you can solve it. So, for example, Namos, which is a 100-person Oracle reseller, had exactly that situation. They had someone approach them and said, I think you could help me. And that turned into a $2.6 million deal. So this is not chicken feed. Here we have people that are making serious decisions. We've got one client that's just actually found a $500 million deal through their work by using social.
Wow.
Where someone's actually said to them, you look interesting. I have this problem. I didn't know that you did this. It's been really interesting reading that article. Can you come and talk to us? And this is about organizations recognizing that the modern buyer, the modern job hunter as well, and the modern investor, we're all on social media. We're all looking for things, and we may actually not know that we're looking for them. And the thing is that we may be looking, but maybe search, it may be discovery, but we're there and we're looking. And what people need to do is understand how to find those people, how to make sure that they're getting the inbound, and then what to do to make sure that they're actually converting it.
Yeah, I like that. Some good stuff. It's interesting because I know that there's a lot of sophisticated tech out there. You've got AI now, and you've got kind of like these fancy algorithms that social media marketing channels, they know what your interests are, what you're currently looking at. If you looked at something last week, which might be, for example, a new car battery, right? You probably have about 15 different adverts on your Facebook feed. And I mean, they're getting super smart, Tim, but also that in a way that kind of like scares me. I don't know if it scares you guys, but it scares me because it's like, how did you know that? It's kind of like one of the things that comes to my mind is like, how did you ever know that I was doing that? Do you have like there's a Facebook pixel, so that actually what it does is that you as you look at certain things, cookies are collected, and the pixel on Facebook basically picks that up and knows that you've given it permission to look at those cookies, therefore it knows what you've been searching for. Yeah. So yes, I will get it's called programmatic, and programmatic actually has a 0.02 success rate. Wow.
So that's a 99.98 failure rate.
Wow.
Hey, but some people are into it. Now, the thing is that they're going to basically pay for ads, and I will probably get them for 2 weeks, except I've already transacted. And that's one of the issues always with programmatic, is that someone actually made a decision or actually decided not to buy, which is just exactly the same. But from if you're, I work in the B2B enterprise space where, people are spending $100,000, $200,000, $1 million on a piece of software. It's highly unlikely that people are going to do that by seeing some programmatic ad or by, there was the cartoonist, the marketing cartoonist, actually, this cartoon this week was, the standard connection request from LinkedIn. And people sitting around in a meeting and someone saying, hey, look, someone sent me a connection request, standard. You look like you may be interesting. Wow, this person could actually help me. It won't. And nobody makes that decision. We do our due diligence. Does this person look an expert? Is this person publishing content that makes it, how does someone say you look interesting and then spend $2.6 million? $2.6 million. They don't do it by someone who's got a CV, because if your LinkedIn profile is a CV, it means you're looking for a job. Yeah. So I ain't going to spend $2.6 million with you because you're just about to leave.
Yeah.
You know, I want someone that's going to be there that's going to see the project out. So, and that's one of the things that people don't often get. You know, there's 840 million people on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Your LinkedIn profile is a shop window to the world.
Yeah.
People are walking past it every day. You know, Adam, you know this from your, you know this from your presence. You know, your website, your LinkedIn profile. You go to it and you go, this bloke's interesting. You know, I'm here because I looked at your stuff and thought, this bloke's really interesting. Look at all this stuff. This what he's written here. He knows his stuff. This is a clever guy. I need to get on his show. And you know, you've positioned yourself as that. And this is what other people have to understand, that we're positioning ourselves out there. Our social media profiles are open 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And what we need is people to go, that's interesting. I think that person can help me. Now, it works the other way when we're doing outbound and prospecting, when we're connecting to people and we're moving out and we're going, hey, you know, and going into our target markets. What we need to do is to make sure that someone says, I'm not going to connect. You know, we don't want them to say, I don't want to connect to that person because they're just going to spam me. I want them to say, I'm going to connect to that person because I think I can learn from them. They've obviously got some interesting intelligence. I can see from their profile, they're telling me things I don't know already. I need to be connected to them because I'm going to learn. I can go into meetings now and sound really clever because I'm connected to Tim Hughes and he's telling me stuff that I can go and look clever with. And what happens is that as soon as you start doing that, you're moving people through the process of saying, I don't know you, to I do know you, I like you, and then I trust you. And then when someone actually says, we need to do something about this social selling, who should we contact? The person will say, I'm connected to this guy, Tim Hughes. I don't really know him. I'm connected, but he puts out this really great stuff. He's written a couple of books. Shall I get him to come in and talk to us? And they say, yeah. And this is about using your presence, using psychology as a way to get those conversations and then ultimately the sales.
Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about psychology, because there was an epiphany that came into my mind. We're talking about that, and I'm just kind of looking at it from the analogy of the prospect, and really kind of understanding the psychology and their thought patterns of, I suppose, perceptional reality of you on social media as well. Does that make sense? And
yeah, it does.
And I think from my perspective, it's like, you know, we all have different experiences on social media, and we've all experienced, by the way, ladies and gents, have all experienced someone like spamming us or whatever it is. And sometimes it can feel very off-putting and whatever it is. When you work with clients, I know that the majority of our listeners here are, you know, the smaller business owner and business leader alike. What do you what advice would you give to those individuals, to those that want to not just increase conversations, but be able to, you know, being able to, I suppose, flick a switch in the perceptional reality of the audience's mind in terms of, you know, in terms of like creating that first impression, creating the right perceptional reality to saying, do you know what, this person sounds like they're a true expert. From your perspective, based on the knowledge that you know, and also the books that you've written, what are some of the things, or that the buyers, or from the audience perspective, what do they look for in terms of like key profiles? Are there certain languages? Is there certain like structures that people look for? Is there a kind of like maybe a checklist that you can give people and say, have you got this in place? Have you got that in place? And this is going to help do this. Have you ever thought about that at all?
Yeah. So there's three things that you need to do. First and foremost, you've got to remember that nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to talk to a salesperson. Most salespeople are seen as being pushy. You know, it's a bit, you know, I don't know you. I don't like you. I don't trust you. I don't want to know you, because as soon as I connect to you, whatever, you're just going to spam me and pitch to me. So we don't connect. And there's a lot of rubbish out there on LinkedIn. there's a thing at the moment. I'm going to talk about your profile. So the three things you need. The first thing you need is what I would call a buyer-centric profile. It's a profile that your buyer is going to be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't about saying, I've made President's Club the last 4 out of the 5 years, and once I get my teeth into a customer, either they die or I die first. That's not buyer-centric.
No.
What we're looking for is, first and foremost, which will surprise a lot of people, is personality. If I'm going to spend $100,000 on something, I'm going to give that to somebody that I think I can get on with.
Yeah.
A great example of your website, Adam, is that you come across as a nice guy. You come across as a empathetic, knowledgeable person. You come across as an expert. Now, whether you wrote it that way or not, but I look at that stuff and I go, Adam looks like, Adam, I could go for a drink with Adam and I think I could have a laugh. And it's about finding who's your ideal customer and making sure that you have that connection on your profile. How is it that you're going to get someone to go, that looks interesting, and actually have the curiosity? Because remember, if you've got the professional edition of LinkedIn and above, as soon as someone looks at your LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn tells you. So what happens is that you can go to that person and say, you looked at my LinkedIn profile. I do this all the time. You looked at my LinkedIn profile. Hope you found what you wanted. Be really interested to know how you found me. Maybe we can connect. And that kicks off a discussion. It's not salesy. It's not pitchy.
No.
All it is, it's giving someone an opportunity to come back and say, well, I actually saw a comment of yours of a mate's on your book, or whatever it is. But it's getting that person to approach you. And there's a number of things that we can do from a psychological perspective. And again, it's about leaning in. It's not about, okay, so we know that you're a salesperson, so you will have a product and a company. But actually what I'm looking for as a buyer is a personality. And the more that you lean in, so for example, Cyberhawk is a drones company. They're a client of ours. Yeah. The the CEO is a guy called Chris Fleming. And you can look up Chris Fleming on LinkedIn. He actually talks about the fact that he was made, he was expelled from school. Now, he talks about that, about how within the context of how that's made him a better CEO, and his life of rebellion actually has made him a better CEO. And what happens is you look at it and go, Chris looks like a really interesting guy. I'd really like to meet him. It's kind of the beer test or the coffee test. I'd love to have a coffee with Chris. And so he's now got the whole of his C-suite, the CRO, the COO, the CIO, and the CFO, all on social media, all having what we call buyer-centric profiles. And they're getting into all kinds of accounts. They do a lot about drones on pylons. A lot of the petrochemical companies that they've got into, they would never have got into without the use of social, because you can't even cold call those organizations. I know people that have set up offices in Saudi Arabia and spent millions of dollars trying to basically get meetings with them. And these people have just got it through social. So buyer-centric profile. It's a profile that people that will walk towards. The second thing, it's about having a network, a digital territory. This is about connecting to people. So when I look at your profile, I'll go, wow, you're connected to this person. And so I have a guy who works for me. He has a particular target account. He's connected to 1,000 people in that account. He's connected to the whole of the C-suite in the US and the whole of the C-suite in the UK. He gets people from that account coming to him saying, you obviously know a lot of people in our company. Can you tell me how this works? Now, what you'll find is with a lot of salespeople is they'll have one connection or 5 connections. If you're trying to sell to BMW, which is a client of ours, they've got over 100,000 people. One connection isn't going to help you. So you need to be connected to all the people that are going to influence. So the people that you're trying to sell to, the people that are influencing them, and you can get 200 connections a week through LinkedIn. So you can start building that now. The third thing that you need is content. Now, research shows that nobody comes to LinkedIn or any social media platform to read brochures. We all know if we want a brochure, we go to the website.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for is insights. And unfortunately, the stuff that marketing creates generally isn't the stuff that we want to read. Because even, they'll produce, we'll produce a 2,000 word white paper, but nobody reads 2,000 word white papers. We might download them, but what we do is that we put them in a file that says, I'll read that one day on a plane or something like that, but we never do. What we want is short, snackable content. So one of the things that we do is we teach people how to write a 300-word blog. Because if I give you a 2,000-word white paper, you'll go, yeah, that's really interesting, Tim. I'll put it to one side. If I give you a 300-word blog, you'll go, okay, I'll read that now. So we're looking at short, snackable content, whether it's a blog, whether it's a short video. And what you're doing is that you're demonstrating your expertise. So for example, classic, I would have been in, I'm just looking at my notes, I will have been in meetings and I write down on the left-hand side blog ideas. So, for example, what one person talks about moments that matter. So I'm thought, right, that's a really good idea. I like that idea and that concept. So I'm actually going to write a blog about creating moments that matter. Now, you may actually have a meeting with a CFO. My background is selling accounting systems. I remember meeting with the CFO of Vodafone, the biggest cell company in the UK, and I said to him, what were the 5 big issues for you at the moment? And he rattled those off. Now I was making notes. Now you could write a blog. You wouldn't mention the CFO of Vodafone unless he or her gave their permission. But you could actually write and say, I've been now working in the telco market for the last 10 years. I actually think that these are the top 5 things that are resonating. So a great example is we had a target account, which is a PE company, private equity company.
Okay.
So what we found out the business issue was because of COVID, they weren't going to get the exit in the time frame they needed. They needed to basically scale. Yeah. So what they were going to do is go out and say, what we need is international expansion. We need to be selling in more markets. So we wrote an article about how PE companies can get access to international companies. Now, we wrote that on the Monday. The managing director of the PE company, now remember, we were already connected to the PE company and we looked like we're experts. So it's not just writing a blog and hoping. You have to put other steps in place. So we put the blog out on the Monday. We had a call on the Tuesday. The MD basically phoned up on the Tuesday and said, that's really interesting. Can he come and talk to us? Wednesday, we presented to his management team. Friday, we presented to the board. Monday, we got a purchase order. Now, let's go back to the people saying social selling takes a long time. This is a way of getting people and getting and scaling and getting contacts with people at a very high level to sell stuff at a very high level where you could be selling something of a strategic position. I'm not talking about selling teapots or batteries or stuff like that.
Sure,
you can do that. But, for example, with BMW, they're selling 50, 60, 70, £100,000, $100,000 cars. It's a considered purchase. So this is what we can do to actually way that people can do this. So buyer-centric profile, a network connecting to the people that you want to influence, not just one person within the account, but the people that are influencing multiple people in the account. And third, content that's actually going to resonate, that's going to give the insight, that's going to entertain. All of these things are what you need to do around social.
It's interesting. So I came across something, when was it? A couple of days ago, actually. So I'm part of a community, and an entrepreneurial community. And so they gave us, they've been doing a study over the last 10 years where they've had, people that have discovered them, whether it be through a lead magnet book or whatever it might be.
Yep.
And so what they have found over the last 10 years, they work with hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs and business leaders. And over the last 10 years, they wanted to conduct a study which would prove how quickly it would take from the time that they were discovered to the time that they were, that they bought something effectively. And according to their research, how many days do you think that How many days do you reckon roughly it took for them to convert?
I've got no idea. One of our clients is 183 days.
Yeah, so you're not far off. 174, believe it or not, 174. And I was quite surprised about that, because that's effectively almost like 6 months, really, 5 to 6 months, roughly. And so obviously so I guess my question really is you talked a lot about, social selling can be done very fast. You can get very high, very quick results. But then if we look at a different spin to this and say, okay, well, if we look at, like, for example, what you said about your client and about this particular research study around the 174 days of buying something, I suppose my question is what are the two differences between, a business that is acquiring a client that's taking almost 6 months versus someone that, what is it they're doing right or wrong, in terms of technique wise? Does that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, it does. I mean, quite often with any organization, if you're going to make $100,000 investment, you're probably going out to more than one supplier. And there's people that got to go skiing, and you've got to book things. So those things generally could take 3, 6 or 6 months, and I kind of get that. To go through that process of doing a demonstration, doing the due diligence, will take that amount of time. But one of the things is, what we found out was, by selling to smaller organizations, some people, you go to them, we're talking here in November. I could go to an person and they say, well, actually, I'm really interested, but the budget's not available until February. Whereas if you go to some small organizations, you can say, this is the opportunity cost for not doing anything. Make the decision now. We'll have you up and running, and you'll be getting leads and meetings using social selling by February. So, certain organizations have different decision-making structures. But the thing is that quite often people think that social selling, it's about relationships. Well, it is. But if you're demonstrating that you're an expert, and if they see that you're doing that and you're positioned right, you've got a buyer-centric profile, people will walk towards you, and then things speed up.
That's cool. So what you're saying, basically, there is an element of branding that's needed to influence that kind of, should we say, that speed of decision making? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And remember, when I'm going to, so the word branding, but the thing is that my relationship with you, Adam, is with you.
Absolutely.
If you suddenly said to me, Tim, I've done this podcast. At the end, you said, I've done the podcast, but actually I'm going to join IBM next week. But I'm going to put the podcast out. My relationship is with you, not with IBM. So even if you change jobs, my relationship with you, and this is one of the things that businesses can't get their heads around, which is that, so what they do is that they go, well, the biggest, IBM, this is it's everything to do with the brand. It's not. It's about the people. It's about the only way that if you look at businesses today, one of the reasons why businesses are shedding staff is because they're not empowering their people. They're not using digital. You can see these companies out there, and I feel so sorry for the employees when they're not being empowered. They're not being able to talk with their own voice. So, for example, display technology, they make displays based in Cambridge. They've cut their budget for recruitment consultants and recruitment ads. They don't use those anymore. Just think that that's a massive expense that they've been able to cut. Why? Because they're using social. They're empowering their employees to put stuff out on social, and people go, do you know, that looks like a really interesting company to work for? Or, hey, I've got a really bad day. They look like they've got a really good ESG policy. They've got a great diversity policy, or whatever it is. They look like they've got a great culture. I'd love to work there. And what happens is that people are going to them saying, can I come work for you? So they've got the pick of the best talent. because the best talent are the people that are not necessarily saying, I've lost my job. Sorry, if you have lost your job, I don't mean any harm. But it's people that are currently in position and in a role that are actually saying, I want to come and work for you, whichever the people that are going to stay the longest.
Also, do you also, from, again, based on your years of experience in social selling, do you also, how influential in terms of the speed of decision making, in terms of, sales and so forth, if I am in my mind, I want to make a change, or, I've got a pain point, how does that influence the social selling aspect, compared to like what we talked about previously, which was like the average client takes 174 days, but then, you've given some really great examples of you can get a decision based in less than a week. So do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, one of the things that we teach as part of our training is that we work with organizations around keywords. Now, the discussion that we have around keywords, quite often you'll find that marketing departments will say that we've got that. But you say to people, okay, so what's your keyword? And they say, well, we want to be number one for digital transformation. You say, okay, well, if you go to Google and put in digital transformation, you'll find that there's billions of articles. You'll never be number one. So it's about finding a long tail of things. Now, what happens is that every time you put out a piece of content, you're as long as you optimize it to be indexed by Google, every piece builds up a library. Every piece means that you're more and more likely to be picked up in search. One of the things that we do when we talk about people's buyer-centric profile is that we show them to make sure that they're optimizing it for search from Google, because Google generally likes LinkedIn because it's full of content.
Yes.
But you can optimize your profile to make sure that you're found if people are searching either for your name or for keywords. So what you're doing is that actually the acquisition of the lead or of the client, we actually find can take 30% less time. Because you're not actually having to go through the process of, when I was in corporate, I'd have someone saying to me, what we need to do is run a seminar. And you go, why? And because I said, I can contact these people and go and have a conversation. A seminar is going to take me 6-8 weeks to organize. I'm wasting 8 weeks because I can just go straight to the people. And that's the thing about social media. If there's someone that you want to talk to, as long as you have a great profile, you have a great network, and you have content that makes you look like an expert, you can pretty much go to anybody and get a conversation. And that speeds the sales cycle up. Telstra Purple, one of our clients, have a 183-day process. They reckon they've been able to shorten that by 30%.
Wow, that's cool.
It's a massive shift.
Definitely, 30% of 183. That's a good jump. Like that.
Yeah. And you think about the fact that if you've closed something, you can then move on. There's an incremental increase in revenue that you can have because you can work on more deals.
Now, I've got a question, because I know that we've talked a lot about LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is one of my favorite platforms. But obviously, social selling doesn't just corner to LinkedIn specifically. Is there any, I suppose, call it? I know that we've got the TikToks now, and we've got the Instagrammers now, and things like that. In terms of, like, I know you mentioned around connecting with people, building content, you've given us the 3 techniques, which is good. How does each channel, I suppose, again, depend on who the audience is going to depend on which social media channel you decide to really hone on. How do the techniques of the 3 that you've highlighted from before, do they need to be articulated or differentiating in terms of execution? The
reason why we teach those things is actually what we're doing is we're teaching people to be social, how to use. So it's social media. So what is the correct behavior to be social on that media? And that's what we're teaching you to be. So one of the things that we do in our training is most of it's on LinkedIn, but we do actually do a small session on Twitter. And really, that is an example of saying, look, what we've just taught you these things. All you have to do now is actually move to Twitter and use those things. This is not about learning. A lot of people think I have to become a LinkedIn expert. You don't. You have to become an expert at being social, because the platform will support it. The same with Twitter. The same with you. You need to have this. If you've got social skills, you can go onto Instagram or any platform you want and execute based on being social.
Love it.
And that's the thing that we teach. It's very different from quite often what you do is you get people saying, well, I will teach you LinkedIn or I'll teach you Instagram. This is about teaching to go on all things. And we call this walking digital corridors and having digital conversations. This is about making sure that salespeople, whereas in the past they may have walked into a building and knocked on doors and said, hey, Steve, can I have a quick 10 minutes with you? What we're doing now is that we're actually we're needing to do this digitally. We know that our clients are on digital. We know that our buyers and everybody are on digital. So how is it that we can actually walk these digital corridors and have these digital conversations?
Cool. Love it. Some very good stuff. Now, in terms of in terms of like, being able to, my belief is that if you're a business that is doing under 7 figures, the focus should always be around doing more sales and marketing. That's kind of, like, my advice to a lot of the clients that I have. In terms of checklist, Tim, is there a particular checklist that you could maybe share, whether it be profiling or whatever it is, in terms of making sure that you create that first impression, being able to create this ideology with your audience in order to speed up that social selling persona, if you like? Is there a checklist that that you give to clients, or that you could advise some tips maybe for some of our listeners?
Really, I would go through the 3 pointers that I talked about.
Cool.
But the thing is that what we know is that I can tell you all these things and you can know all these things, but knowing and doing are 2 different things.
Execution.
And it's about execution.
Yeah.
And always with sales, it's about, if you stop prospecting, then the prospects stop coming in.
True.
So it's about, you've got to be connecting to people every week. You've got to be putting out content. Now, I put out content every day. This is a great piece of content. It highlights you, Adam. It highlights me. I'm obviously going to share this on my profile because it demonstrates that I'm an expert. And if you watch it and you say, well, actually, I don't like Tim Hughes. Well, that's great because I qualified you out because you were never going to buy from me either. So what happens is actually that's great efficiency. But you've got to remember today that if you're not posting content, you are invisible. So if you've got somebody that only comes to LinkedIn on Wednesdays because the children are at swimming lessons or something like that, and you're not posting on Wednesdays, you are invisible. Yeah. And this is one of the things that people have to wrestle with, which is the fact that we need that visibility. We need to have that credibility, and we get that by posting on a daily basis and having authentic articles that people can read and find interesting, insightful. And I'm also going to say the word entertaining.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Fun and entertaining is definitely, for me, it's definitely right up there. 100%. Love that. Now, I know that we're kind of coming towards the end of our conversations. Now, I know that social selling, your second edition, I know that you wrote the first edition about 6 years ago. I think you said that you'd written
2016. Yeah.
2016. Yeah. 6 years ago. So, was going to say to you, how does the updated version differentiate between that and which you've got in your hand now? Well, how does it what have you discovered, and how do you feel like things have evolved over the last 6 years? Why the update?
So the feedback that it's sold constantly, and especially sold during COVID. But the feedback that I was getting that there were certain subject matters. One of them was that there used to be this thing called clout, which died in 2018 because of GDPR, which used to be a measurement of social media influence. Okay. So I'd written about the world as of, I wrote it in 2015, it came out in 2016. There's a number of things that have changed. So just before last Christmas, my partner and I, we went to Portugal for 2 weeks, and we got a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom where I was able to shut the door and not have all the distractions you get at home. And basically I rewrote the book. And I also went out to practitioners. When I wrote the first one, it was very much, I'd rolled out social selling across 4,000 people at Oracle, but that was really the only experience I had. Whereas we've now been running the business for 6 years, and we've got far more practical experience and case studies of being able to put in the book. So I went out to 15 people who were doing social selling already. So sales leaders. So I've got contributions from Cyberhawk, Telstra, RingCentral, Namos, Daniel Guzman at Mercer, Anita Vasilia Eriksson, a headhunter friend of mine, as well as people within my own business. Where I've said, here's a section on community. I want you to write me a case study on what you're doing at community. Showcase what you're doing at the moment, because a lot of people still think that social selling somehow is some sort of future state. It's like, well, it's not. I wrote the article, How to Get 10 C-level meetings a week, way back in 2016. People are doing this, and what people need to understand is that they're falling behind, way falling behind. So the original book had 187 pages. The second edition has got 306.
Wow!
So there's a big update in terms of the changes, and it is right up to date in terms of 2023.
Yep, good, love it. Some good stuff there. Well, listen, guys, I hope that Tim's been giving you some great value bombs from today's conversation. What I would highly recommend you do is connect with Tim. We'll put all his social media links below, by the way, and do check out his books. And check out social selling and some other books as well, and he's also on LinkedIn a lot, so make sure you connect on LinkedIn as well, and various other channels, whichever your preferred channel is, of course. Tim, I just want to say thanks very much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been great fun, and it's been great chatting with you. It's been wonderful.
Likewise. Listen, guys, if you have any questions, do me a favor, drop Tim a DM or a personal message. Just mention this podcast. And again, as I mentioned to everyone here on the show, if you enjoy our shows, okay, all I have is a real big ask is if you could leave a 1 or a 5-star review. I'm not going to be offended if you put a 1-star review, by the way. I don't have very many. In fact, I don't have any. But if you do put any, it's always good to have constructive feedback. If you're on Apple or on Spotify, please leave a review. I would love it for you guys to hear from you, and hope you've enjoyed the show, and hopefully we'll see you again. Take care. We'll see you soon. Cheers.